Hey, what's going on, Howard? How are you? Here. Howard, good afternoon. How are you? I think you might be on mute here.
Yeah, I just have
There
to.
we go. I can hear you now. How's it going,
Okay.
man?
Another crazy week, but all good.
All good. That's awesome. Good to hear that. How's the weather?
Oh my God, it's been the last couple of days like perfect September weather.
I love it.
Sev-
Yeah,
70 and no humidity.
oh my God, I love that. It cooled down here as well after the hurricane. We
Yeah,
didn't get any crazy rain or anything, just like light thunderstorm, but it cooled down. We're like in the 75, 80 degrees now. So
yeah,
loving the fall season. So
yeah. It's supposed to go in the 90s next week.
oh really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So Indian summer kicking in.
Yeah, hopefully it's not super crazy next week. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get the party started here. I'll give it about a couple of more minutes and we will go ahead and get started. I see Chad just joined. It's gonna be a lot of new faces today. Hopefully, we onboarded a few new clients in Texas, Florida. So hopefully
Okay.
they'll be on this call. Today
So
I was thinking we should dive in kind of deeper into advertising, kind of sales, your sales process. Maybe if you
yeah,
can highlight some of that stuff
sure.
would be super helpful. I can talk
Absolutely.
about like your approach, with liquidscapes. You've been in the industry for a while, so we want to talk about like, hey, what have you used as far as like advertising when you started off versus what
Right.
are you doing right now? So we can kind of jump right in on that as well.
Okay.
Cool. Give it about a few more minutes.
Any feedback from, our efforts of last week? Any yet or a little
Oh
early?
man, our clients absolutely loved it. I know John was on the call last week and he was all fired up by listening to you and super inspired by your story as well. Hopefully he usually joins around 12:10, 12:15, but he should be here shortly and we'll talk about it. What's up, Chad? Good to see you, man.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, good. How are you? How's your week been?
Oh, that's good. Busy, busy, busy. Ready for the end of the week.
Chad's based out of Austin here. He
Yep.
also has a pool construction company in Austin. Chad, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick intro? I know we chat last week.
Yeah, I'm a outdoor pool builder, new pool builder, specialized in outdoor. I have crews that work with local builders as well because they don't have
Hmm.
tile and coping, and we do patios, outdoor kitchens. Um, we probably build somewhere between 25 and 30 pools a year. If you're looking for just a pool, we're not the company that you go to. I'll refer you to somebody because we do so many roof structures, outdoor kitchens, pool remodels, and
Yeah.
things like that. My wife and I started the business in 2007 in the landscape end of it. And every time we would show up, you would hear the old stories of the pool builder. I haven't seen my pool builder in 3 months. Y'all got here ever since you showed up. Y'all done everything. So why don't you dig the hole? And we used to fight back and forth. I don't want to dig the hole. I'll do
Right.
everything but digging the hole.
Yeah.
But then I had a customer that said, let me be your guinea pig. And that's how it started. And
Hmm.
we're seeing a big slowdown here in Austin, especially with Pool Corp. The pool industry is probably down 60% in Central Texas.
Hmm.
We're also fighting a big issue out here called ASR. Had a couple of shotcrete companies that were using, luckily, we don't have any of it, but I guess they were not using the proper amounts of fly ash in their shot. And
Hmm.
we've got engineers. If you were on a pool, you're involved in lawsuits. Uh,
Right.
it's it's a bunch of finger pointing going on out here, from Cody
Yeah.
pools to Premier pools to you can name the company. I mean, everybody's dealing with it. We gunite our pools, so we haven't seen an issue with ASR and gunite. But as far
Hmm.
as shotcrete here in Central Texas, it's coming down to like three of the major companies that were shooting it.
Right. Right. We only use gunite as well here in New Jersey, and there was some sabotaging going on a little bit a couple years back, where competitors were sabotaging their competitors with employees, and the PSI wasn't there, and
Wow.
so we had about probably 4 or 5 pools that had issues of compromised gunite that we had never experienced before. And so it seems to be nipped. It seems to correct itself, but hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs, to remediate those issues. That, we're a small operator, and trying to fight the big guys, forget it,
Right.
But we found a company that now does rebar as well, family-owned company, probably between the whole family, 30 of them. And we've been very happy. And the quality has been there, the control has been there. And now we feel confident having them do even the steel work for us. And so it's good for them, good for us,
Okay.
So I don't want to mention any companies because I don't want to hurt anybody, but yeah, we dealt with that too. Some issues.
Yeah, and then what they're finding out here in Texas, the nozzle man that is shooting your pool does not have to be certified.
Mhm.
So when you're looking at the nozzle man to verify, and you're covering your butt as in legal, you're getting your printout, you're getting your mix, you're seeing what they're saying the
Mhm.
PSI is, but with that being, it comes down to the engineers coming out and taking core samples, because
Right.
I also do remodels. I've gone to 10 pools that, of course, I didn't build, but when you talk to these clients, it's like, man, we just got finished spending $200,000 a year ago, and
Mhm.
everybody's advising us the only way to remedy this ASR problem is to rip out the pool and start over.
Yeah.
And so now you're getting where they take the core samples, and you're looking at it and you're going, okay, it's 50%, excuse me, workmanship, poor workmanship. And the other 50% is the mix they're getting.
Yeah.
And, here, South Texas, Southwest region, we all get together every Thursday, third Thursday of every month at Dave and Buster's, all the local pool builders here in Central Texas. And it's just been an on, we have engineers that come talk, attorneys that come talk,
Right.
especially with COVID. Nobody had COVID in the clause of their contract,
Right.
so everybody does now, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I guess we can go ahead and get started. I see it's 12:07. Howard, I guess we can get started with like just big picture. I'm just kind of curious to know, how has your marketing approach evolved over the years, especially with the rise of digital platforms? I know Facebook was not big or Instagram was not big like 10 years ago or 8 years ago, but it is now. Maybe post-COVID, I've seen a lot of companies, kind of diving into Instagram, pushing content. So how has your marketing approach evolved all these years?
Well, big picture has always been the same for 45 years. So the big picture is, there's the industry has such a poor reputation between the pool side, the landscape side, and if you do both like us, nonetheless, not a great reputation. You'll see it right away when clients right away say, "Oh my God, thank you for returning my call." And I'm like, seriously? I said, that's my job, to respond to your needs and calls. So it even starts from the very beginning. But big picture has always been, I am not there to sell them anything. Everybody thinks go in there and grab a sale. I've never been the approach of salesman, and salesman has, I consider in any industry, a very bad tagline, because the
Right.
interpretation is exactly that. You're there to sell me something I don't need, I don't want, it's going to cost me too much, and a bait and switch and all that nonsense that goes with a tagline of salesman. So I've always wanted to be recognized as not just somebody who's very passionate about what I do and very committed, but an advisor, an educator. And so I always tell clients when I'm pre-qualifying them on the phone before we meet, and we'll get into that, I am not here to sell you anything because you don't even know what to buy yet.
Right.
So you say you're calling me to buy a pool, but what kind of pool? We don't do vinyl, we don't do fiberglass, we only do gunite, steel reinforced concrete pools. Why?
Yeah.
Because I can customize that and engineer it almost any way I want. I never wanted to present a commodity and then tell you I can't do what you want because this product can't do that. So, and because, we target the high-end residential, they don't want to hear limits either, and nor do we want to hear limits as designers and builders. We want to be able to provide what is the best answer to the client. But I can't emphasize enough, go in there with the approach that you are there to listen and understand their needs, why they feel those are their needs, because sometimes they don't even realize what their needs are.
Yep.
So, and anybody who designs pools and landscapes, they'll probably agree with me. Probably we apply 1% of the information we get from the client. And to me, that's really lifestyle and needs. Beyond that, we're figuring everything else out. They really don't know what they're going to get. They don't really know what it's going to turn out to be until we educate and inform them. And then even through that process, it takes a lot of time for them to catch up to truly understand what it is we're committing to and creating for them, even with all the visual assets. So I'm a big believer, in educate, inform, and, try to pull information out of the client and then provide the answers and solutions they need.
Yeah.
And I always say to the clients, look, everybody just wants to jump into a project and engage. And the kiss of death is designing as you go. I mean, and then you wonder why there's overruns of timelines and budgets and all kinds of issues. So, I tell clients all the time, for every hour I spend with you, us getting acquainted, me informing you and educating you, saves me and my guys 10 hours of guessing at the drafting table. Who are these people? What do they really want? What matters to them? What is their budget? What is their taste? How do we conform their ideas to the site, and make sure it's compliant with local zoning and all of those things. So, and I think it's important, when you're having these conversations, you're starting to get a read on the client. Is this a client I want to work for? Do they value our process? Do they value the design exercise? Are they willing to pay for it? Do they value what we value, which is doing it right the first time and not compromising things? And are their timelines realistic? Are their expectations realistic? So it isn't just talking about educating about pools and landscapes. It's all of it.
Yeah.
And I may walk out of there and go, after spending an hour with that person or 2 hours, like, probably not a good fit. And back out gracefully and explain why, So there's nothing wrong with being budget conscious, but you don't compromise, the critical components of a project, And typically all the consumer really understands is what we all call in the industry the lipstick, the finishes. I want this kind of color water, is a typical, response, nothing to do with the structural engineering and all the infrastructure that you can't see and appreciate under the ground. So they'll never catch up to that level of education. Though I've had a great experience literally this past week with a client in Princeton, New Jersey, who the gentleman used to be an architect. Then he became an owner agent to his clients who were doing, resorts and hotels, very wealthy people. And he was the one, fleshing out all the trades, the bids. And so he understood completely, the process of his project that he wants to do, this ultra custom project, and very sophisticated pool and a very cool modern, but there's, DEP issues because he's along a freshwater stream and about the access and all that kind of stuff that we have to have available. And we're having such a great time getting to know each other and sharing our thoughts and vision for his project, because we're on the same page. Like, he has saved me 99% of my work in trying to educate him, but he's 1%,
Yeah.
of clients out there that speak and understand our language. So I've developed my process over the years, and I do charge a $300 consultation. Usually that consultation takes an hour, and that includes my travel time. So it could be a half hour to an hour one way. And I tell my clients all the time, or prospective clients, you're going to get a very comprehensive education and dialogue from me after doing this for 45 years. So I want you to get complete value of that hour, and I want you to get complete value of the $300 you're going to pay me. And it's a little bit of a litmus test too, just like people paying for design. And I said, but before we meet, I'm going to give you homework. And I said, of the 5,000 projects I've designed and built, the process is always the same, and the outcome has always been different. Each project is one of a kind, because every client and site and need is one of a kind. So, and it's very simple, so I can either send them out a sheet, or I explain it over the phone, or I do both. Said the first thing I need is to take a look at your survey.
Yep.
The survey is the most important document right now that I need to look at. Or if you're building a new home or doing any type of renovation, I need to see those as well, because I need an as-built topographical survey. What's that? Well, that's all existing conditions, everything. And obviously topographical is the topography of the property, the lay of the land. Why do you need that? I said, well, I need that to see how accurate it is to the site conditions. If it isn't, we need to bring a licensed surveyor in to get it to that level. Because for us to start at the design process, we need to be working from existing conditions and existing grades. And if there's any key trees, we need to know their location. We need to know where they sit on grade, so we're not compromising those trees and anything else that I'll happen to see when I'm on site. We need that. We need you to make that investment anyway, because the town requires it. When we go to submit for zoning, the minute you say pool or accessory structures or whatever your program is here in New Jersey, and most states, I think, are going to start to adhere to this. If they don't, they want to see, when you submit for zoning, all existing conditions currently, and are you compliant? Because people play games, and proposed conditions, and are you compliant? All right, meaning you don't need a variance, right? We need to know if we need a variance. Right off the bat, I'm doing a job in Mountainside, New Jersey. Just to put a pool and a pool house in, we already have to go for a variance. We're allowed 30% impervious coverage. They're at 39. So it's already a variance. I want my clients to know that.
Now, question for you, Howard. Have you always charged for a console, the $300, or at what point did you decide, like, hey, I need to start charging for a console because my time is worth, you're going to get so much value out of that console? What was that journey like?
It really became down to the level of the lead.
Got it.
So if I'm getting a lead from a high-end architect or builder or somebody, first of all, if they're hiring an architect, they already see the value of design, and they're already willing to pay for that effort, right? With the architect. So they see the value in design. So that's a good barometer. So it really, if it's a cold call, a client's cold calling me that doesn't know anything about my company, some of you haven't seen my work. They just heard I have a high rating on Google, or there's this, neighborhood.com. People can't say enough about us, but really haven't done their due diligence or done their homework. And also, depending on the neighborhood, we're typically working on multi-million-dollar residences.
Right.
If I get a call for somebody to do a pool or a landscape that's on a $750,000 residence, and I already know the pool could be and landscape could be $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000. No way they're typically going to spend that kind of money. Us being a premier company. So I don't want to waste their time and my time. So I've always based the consoles prior to COVID on how hot and warm the lead is.
Got it. So
So-
depending
so
on
I'm not-
that is what you then charge for them. Makes sense.
Right. Like, if it's a referral from an architect I've worked for 10, 20, 30 years, we've done multiple projects, I know I'm already in a good spot. And then when COVID hit, and then the price of gas hit and the frenzy of phone calls, I'm like, this is crazy. It's costing me a lot of money to go out there. I used to charge $200 for a console. Now it's $300 because also the gas money, and sometimes the meetings go more than an hour. They go 90 minutes. Some of them are an hour away. Some are a half hour away, So, that's part of it. So getting back to kind of the process, though, the first thing is have your survey available. Most surveys are very generic. Typically, they're not as-built topographical surveys unless it's brand new construction, because it was required
Right.
to get a zoning approval here in New Jersey. Number two is wish list and program. I want husband and wife together to outline their wish list and program. And I always tell them to put it in order of priority. Why? After doing this for so many years, there's three categories in life. There's the must-have. We absolutely have to have this. We absolutely have to do this. That's, in my eyes, a client priority. Right. Then there's the like-to-have. And then the really on the tail end is, these are things we're considering, not really high priority, but we'd like to share it with you. Great. Why do I ask them to do that? Is not only do I want them to collect their thoughts, I'm telling them I'm trying to balance your wishes and wants and expectations with budget. Right? That's our job. And you're part of that equation. Well, I don't want to spend money on things that are the things that least matter to you.
Yeah.
Because typically the wish list is much bigger than the budget. And we need to make sure it's balanced. We need to make sure it's within plus or minus 10%. Right? So then then I tell them, look, once you start putting it in your wish list, when I'm there, I'll fill in the blanks. There's gonna be a lot of associated costs you're not gonna be thinking of. You're not gonna be thinking about your soft costs, your permit fees, your application fees, hiring a licensed, a surveyor, hiring us, hiring a structural engineer, hiring a civil engineer. Do we need an architect to stamp and seal the drawings? Those are your soft costs, right? And then your hard costs. And then people don't think about BTUs or ampage. We got to upgrade your utility. We got to put in silt fence. We got to do construction road access. We got to remove that access. So, I'll fill in the blanks, to help them define their program. Because based on their program, I say, well, to pull that off, here are all the other things we need that have costs associated to them, right? So then I get into functionality and livability. We all get these phone calls. Howie, what kind of pool should I have? Wrong question. What I need you to think about is how you want the pool to live and function. How do you intend to use it? How do you intend to use your property? Oh, we're avid grillers. We need this size grill. We need 2 grills. We need a smoker. We need a refrigerator. We need a sink. Okay, well, I'm not going to know that unless you tell me that. We grill all year long. We need the grill to be close to the kitchen so we can go out there in the winter. Okay? Pool. How are you going to use? Well, we love to swim laps, or the kids want to slide, or they want a diving board, or we don't want a diving board. We don't want a deep end. It's not for recreation. It's for lounging. Or we want a sun shelf, or we want a spa, or we want the sound of water. We want to play basketball. We want to play volleyball. Or I'll ask those questions to flesh it out again because they don't even realize that they can have these things, or those are options. Or we have a couple that the husband is 6'8", the wife is 6'2". They're triathletes. Their kids are world-class swimmers. They're 6'5", 6'6". Well, they have a completely different physical demand of the pool. Right. Or I had a client, two surgeons in Princeton that said, we want, a lap pool and a spa. Well, Lap pool pretty much has zero return value from a resale standpoint. It's so specific. It's such a specific and limited use. I want to make sure that you understand that before you commit to that financially. Well, we are avid swimmers. That's our number one point of exercise. Our practice is here in Princeton. We are going to die in this house. We're never going to move. We want an auto cover to extend the use and season of the pool, to retain heat. And they're giving me all the answers I want to hear to say, you know what, that's a good value decision. Good, right? So that's our goal, to make sure that however we're directing our clients, it's always based on value, and value now and long term. Lots of times we'll hear clients say, well, we just want our pool to be 4 feet deep, but we got 3 young kids. Well, those young kids are going to outgrow that pool very quickly. Is that the investment you want to make long term? I know when you're like, wow, this pool is no longer functional for our family. Well, let's make sure we understand those commitments.
So you're really having customers to think, like, why do they want that project, long term, short term, and depending on that, you're basically educating them, like, hey, if you decide to go with this is how, these are the impacts, these are the stuff that you haven't thought about, so let me kind of educate you. So you have a really like sophisticated discovery process.
Well,
Obviously,
there's 2 more pieces.
Go ahead.
2 more pieces. And you'll see the end game. There's a reason why it's happening in this sequence, right? So whatever they can't communicate in words, I tell them, my God, we have so much access to images. Put together a storyboard. What is it about that image, whether it's my work or other work you've seen, that drew your attention? Is it the entire essence of the space? Is it a specific palette of material? What is it? Is it everything or just parts? Right? And then the last piece is budget. The most uncomfortable conversation for everybody. I'm not going to give that up. I'm not going to put my cards on the table. Well, then we're kidding ourselves. And the reason why I tell them to start thinking about budget at the end, not at the beginning, because when they start looking at their list of requirements and what they want, I'm like, there's 40 items here, and you have a budget of $200,000. So that means every item on average is $5,000. Well, the pool's not $5,000.
Yeah.
The fencing's not $5,000. The design is not even $5,000. You've defined an $800,000 job here. And the biggest disconnect that most people have is they have an idea in their head, and we have so much imagery available. Here, this is what I want. Okay, well, what you want and how it's going to conform to your site that has a 30 or 40 foot grade change. Yep. This is a flat lot. The amount of walls and steps and cheek walls and risers and grading and site work and drainage, you just doubled your project. So really what I'm trying to do is get them prepared. So when we have that hour and a half meeting, they're not like, oh God, I wish I would have shared this with Howie. Because what we're trying to do as professionals is define the language of the project. Yep. What is this project? And based on that, I'll know what information I need to provide in design to give them the answers they need to make good value decisions. But until I know what this project is, you know what? After speaking with you, you're right. We don't need the pool house. You're right. We're better off, as you recommended, finishing the basement because we have access. Why would you build a pool house that's a seasonal use in New Jersey, an accessory structure? You're going to be taxed on it, and you're going to winterize it, or you're going to actually heat it and air condition it.
Yeah.
You know, pool houses are very expensive, opposed to something that already is insulated, something that already has plumbing supply, electrical supply, that we could set up a bathroom in the basement, finish a portion of the basement, and use that as a means. Is that an option?
I love that.
So, oh my God, I would have never thought about that. When I meet clients for the first time, they always laugh when I say, where's the closest bathroom to this future pool? Because if you tell me it's a little powder room in the front foyer with a little pedestal sink and a toilet across your wood floors, you're not going to be happy with that. So we need to think about another condition to make it work, because that bathroom is not going to hold up well, and or your wood floors to all the foot traffic and wet bathing suits. So
that $300 console is either going to save them hundreds and thousands of dollars, or basically they're like, this is exactly what I wanted, let's go forward, right? So you're educating them based on the questions, the goals, the desire that they have, and kind of telling them this is how I would, basically diagnosing the situation. Now every single lead will turn into a sale, right? Like every buyer is in a different phase. Some are just looking around, I kind of want to just check it out. Some are like, hey, I'm ready to go. I have a survey, I've got my financing lined up, whatever the case is. What's your process like to kind of nurture your leads? You get their name, email, phone number. Do you use like a CRM? Do you have a follow-up? Like, what does that look like? I kind of want to like dig deeper into that.
yeah, well, let me back up on the console, because part of the console is timeline. What is your timeline? What we just described is like an 8-month build out. Oh, I thought I was going to be in the water next summer. So, so I want to ground them. And you haven't even engaged us yet. We don't even have the survey yet. What is the surveyor's schedule? Oh, he's back 2 to 4 weeks. So I can't even start the design until a month from now, and I have other designs ahead of you. So I may be able to even touch your design in 2 months. Then it's got to get handed to the civil engineer. And then we have to go for a submission. And here in New Jersey, legally, they have 3 weeks to evaluate and assess the zoning application. So 3-4 months might go by. Then we have to go for construction permits. They legally in New Jersey have 3 weeks. Okay. So that could take 6 weeks. Then some of the towns in New Jersey said, you know what, submit everything at once so we could speed things along. Then when COVID hit and they were overwhelmed with applications and short staff, they're like, no, we're going back to the old ways. And they took longer than three weeks. I waited 3 months for a zoning approval because they were so short staffed and overwhelmed with applications because of COVID. So these are realities. And when you're dealing with the high end who think, and it doesn't even have to be high end. People think they don't know these behind the scenes things that are going on. And other people have other obligations as well. The civil engineer, the surveyor, they have other clients to serve. So unless you inform them and educate them, we all get calls. It's March. Will I be in the pool by summer of this year? No, summer of next year. Forget back, trying to get materials and all that. So when I'm doing that consultation, not only are we fleshing out, program and scope and budget, timelines, other disciplines that are involved in the project. Is there a builder and architect involved? That's a whole nother, or are we the only contractors on the job? Right? So it's just grounding them to reality. If there's anything we have gotten away from, is reality.
Yeah.
Right? So, and what we also do, which is pertinent in New Jersey, once we have the as-built topographical survey, I employ all my clients to have my civil engineer do a zoning assessment. Okay, now we have the existing conditions. Where are we with zoning? Where are we with impervious coverage, building coverage, interpretations of certain things of zoning, whether they're easements or wetlands? I let my PE speak to the town PE, and the clients pay for it. Sometimes it's like $600, because before I design, and if I have somewhat of a built-out project, and we're allowed 35% impervious coverage, I need to know what we have to work with. Oh, we've already eaten up 32%. I've got 3% left. I need to know that. You need to know that.
Yeah.
And I used to have my own landscape architects just go online, read the zoning requirements. But here's the reality. Just because that's how it reads, that isn't how the zoning official interprets it. You got the human condition here. So I rather have my PE speak to the town's PE. What exactly do you mean by this interpretation? So we know what we're dealing with. Every town is different. Every town has a different interpretation. I'm doing a job in Rumsden right now that we're right at the limit of impervious coverage with our hardscapes, but they have this weird scenario that if hardscapes are touching certain things like structures, like a pool or a pergola, it counts. If a hardscape is not touching, it doesn't count. It's the oddest thing I've ever seen. And boulders don't count. It's weird. It's a really weird formula. So every town in New Jersey has a different formula too, how they interpret things. It's not one size fits all.
Yeah. But
You know?
going back to your approach, I feel like that approach to value-based sales can apply to any size of project, right? Like whether it's a 300, 500, $1 million project, whether it's a $50,000 pool, right? Like
Absolutely.
it can apply to anything. Do you use a sales CRM, Howard?
When I had a bigger firm and I had 50 employees, yes,
Okay.
we did, because
Okay.
there was just so much to track. Now I'm running a much smaller operation out of my
Okay.
home, and it's manageable. It would be overkill. I don't need it.
Love that.
So
Now I'm curious to hear, what's your process like to get reviews? Google reviews help you with your online presence, as well as do you have any referral program for your clients?
when I was a bigger firm, I used many other vehicles.
Okay.
Now the firm is a firm of 8. I used to do 10, 15 million a year with 50 guys under my payroll and 250 other guys as subs, doing 80 to 120 projects. But now we're doing maybe 12 to 25 projects. So I was always a boutique operation, but a much smaller boutique. So I'm doing more direct target marketing myself, because I don't need volume. I want quality over quantity.
Makes sense.
If I had 15 great projects, and those 15 great projects could range from 300,000. If they were all 3 million, I couldn't even handle it. Because there's such a shortage of good people and good contractors.
Right.
So
and you're in a position where you can do that. You can pick and choose your project because you build a brand for yourself, Liquidscape,
right
for 45 years. We all see your content. I know John, one of your Instagram, beautiful pictures of the pools, the backyards that you built. Now you're at a point where you're like, this is what I charge, this is what I do. And that brand gives you that pricing power, also helps you dominate your local area. Does that sound about right? Like before, when you were doing about million, less than $1 million, you were like, okay, I need to take on as much as I can to get the word out.
Well, it's every business starts at the same place. Nobody jumps into business and doing $3 million projects, right? So I could count on my hand how many $3 million projects I've done in 45 years. Probably 20 of them, right? So our bread and butter project, because we do everything other than the home, is usually as low as 350 to 500 to $750,000, because we're doing everything other than the home. So all the other components. But whether you're doing that or $50,000 to $150,000 jobs, you have to decide, what's your demographic that you want to target, which really means, how far can you go without compromising your level of service? We drive further for the better jobs, but the clients pay for it. So, I target the high-end zip codes in New Jersey, and we're willing to travel an hour or an hour and a half, for a project like that, because it's not me driving, it's the crews, so it takes longer. So, but we make sure that if we're going to drive an hour, hour and a half, it's well worth our time. But also we can service the job. If you can't service the job, don't push your demographics, or you'll
Right.
just destroy your reputation.
Yep.
And then depending on the demographics you're targeting and the size of your company and your capabilities and what you're going to offer as a service, are you targeting neighborhoods in the $500,000 range, or in the $750,000 range, or the $1 million range? Because it's all relative. $500,000 residents, maybe will spend $50,000 to $100,000 on their property, 20%. Well, that's a completely different strategic marketing approach than targeting homes in the 5 million and up.
Howard,
Yeah.
are you you're doing the initial visit, or do you have somebody else do that?
It depends on the lead.
Yeah.
So if it's strictly, let's say, a pool renovation, or strictly just pool,
Yeah.
then I'll send Tom, who's a certified pool builder
Okay.
of 30 plus years, solo.
Yeah.
And we're all specialists, right? So
Yeah.
if you were to meet
Gotcha.
Tom, his whole world is coping in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And where the equipment pad goes, and at what elevation.
Yeah.
How is he going to make it all work hydraulically, and worried about lost runs and how much pipe we running, what's the access and all that stuff.
Right. Okay.
But I have found lots of times, if I do that with Tom, I'm leaving potential work on the table. Well, that I'm not there to say, well, now that we're talking about the pool, obviously, the pool decking, the landscaping.
Yep.
And so, I typically, we double up.
Okay.
We double up.
All right.
If I can't make it, I have my 2 landscape architects. Maybe we'll go out with Tom.
Okay.
And they're more than competent to have those conversations as well. And this probably more has to do with, John, with presenting than it does, meeting clients for the first time. But there's strength in numbers, and always strength in numbers. So when you have 2 professionals or 3 professionals meeting clients, and on this side of the table, I've got 45 years. One of my other guys here has got 30. The other one's got 35.
Right.
And there's over 100 years of experience. And the clients hear us saying the same things. They're like, wow, maybe we should listen.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's 100 years of experience on the other side of the table. And even when we're doing presentations, if it's husband and wife, I make sure it's a 2-to-2 ratio, or 3-to-2 in my favor. Because again, we're all reinforcing the same value.
Yeah.
And it's more convincing because we're all saying the same thing.
Yep. That's
How
exactly
the job
right.
should be built, how it should be sequenced.
Yep.
And they're like, wow, we keep hearing the same things. And like anything in life, when it's explained a certain way, it just becomes common sense. Well, yeah, duh. Of course you need construction access. Of course we need to put a construction road down so we don't track mud out onto the street and get a phone call from an unhappy neighbor. And then all of a sudden the town shows up, is going to shut us down.
Yep.
So yeah, we don't want that either. So, and we wouldn't want that if we were a neighbor and the neighbor was doing that next door. So when you start explaining certain things, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Not that I want to pay for it sometimes, but that's the reality of the job.
Okay.
Right
on. Does anybody have any other question? Chad, Elmer, you guys have any questions for Howard? I do have another question, but just wanted to see if you guys have anything you want to ask. No. Howard, my question is mostly related to cash flow. When you are, this is one of the biggest problems I've seen in the industry, is like cash flow, issues with cash flow. I don't have money this month, like gotta pay the employees, gotta take care of the crews. How do you manage your cash flow, especially if you are doing multiple projects at the same time?
Well, obviously, having a good, software or whatever you're using to keep track of your spending, your estimating, and your cash flow. You know, I hate to say it right off the bat, it's making sure you're pricing the job right.
Yeah.
You know, that's the first thing. And that's the biggest problem. You know, they're not just pricing the job right, they're pricing the job too low, or they don't have the experience to think about all the things. And, you know, depending on the job, especially renovation work, whether it's pool renovation or landscape renovation or both, those are the things that you could just put an allowance to and say, honestly, until we get deeper into this thing, I don't even know what we're getting into. So from now, I can make a superficial assessment, but until we open up these walls or we get behind these walls or see what we're dealing with, I mean, some of those things nobody could tell you, you know, and also make sure you have clauses in your contract that also indicate that, you know, as well. So the biggest problem is right off the bat, just not pricing the job right. And, you know, look at builders, right? That do custom work.
Yeah.
They're cost plus for a reason. They have an agreed margin, say it's 20%, 25%. You know, it's very transparent. You'll see all the numbers, but my fee is it's a fixed fee. And the reason why they do that and have to do that is because all the decisions are not made.
Yeah.
Right? So how do I protect myself? As you're making decisions, whatever I touch, this is my fixed margin. But some of these things, we don't even know where we're going yet. You know? So our industry hasn't figured that out yet. And I've come to realize with these huge projects.
It's a big problem. I hear it every day.
Yeah, with the big projects, the reality is, and I have those big boy talks with my clients, when you're talking $1 million projects and more, so much can happen between the day you meet them and talk about a budget to the day you're getting zoning approval to build the project out. That could take a year, and then it might take a year to 2 years to execute. So in 3 years' time, already your operating costs have gone up. Material costs have gone up, right? So I haven't done open book with an agreed margin, but I make it very clear to clients, you know, these are strong allowances, but the irrigation quote I gave you 3 years ago that we're now doing now is 15% more. Just in the materials, it's 15% more. So you have to have those big boy, you know, conversations. And I was working for the CEO of Merck, doing the biggest project I ever did in my life, almost like a $4.5 million job on 40 acres. And it was a $25 million job all in. And Katrina hit. And all petroleum costs went through the roof. And I said to Richard Markham, I said, I'm already losing money before the job starts. I don't have escalation clauses in my contract to cover this. So I can't build your project at the price.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed as far as the manpower, the hours, the equipment needed, but the raw materials have changed dramatically. Petroleum costs went up like 60% after Katrina. So, and he understood. You have to be comfortable and having these business conversations, right? But unfortunately, most guys in our industry, you know, start with a shovel in their hand, not a business degree, not a finance degree. And that's a big problem. I was one of those guys myself, you know, so, but you learn the hard way. And another thing I'll recommend to everybody, here I work for the top 1%ers, right? Leaders who mold our world. Some of the smartest financial people you'll ever sit down with your clients. Get educated by your clients. I have never had a client say, I don't have time for this. They're like, I'm flattered that you would ask, you know, and take them out to dinner and have a conversation with you've got great resources just from some of your client base, and they would respect you more as a business owner, right? So that is a huge void in this industry because that is not discussed. shared or taught. Most guys just fall into this business because, as we always said, because the family was in the business or friends were in the business, but nobody is thinking about that aspect. They're thinking about, how do I build this paver patio? What kind of equipment do I need? They're not thinking about
They're
it.
great builders, but not great business owners, like
Exactly.
you said.
Yeah, and it's a huge.
I love your approach about having a fixed margin on each project. Like this is my take home. And I think I was reading this book, Profit First. I don't know if you've read it, Howard.
Yes.
It's a great book for anybody on the call. I highly recommend read that book. Same exact framework what you described, like
Yeah,
sure.
historically, we put a 30 to 40% margin
Okay.
on everything. And we typically walk away with 12 to 15%. That's when all bills are paid. And it's been like that for like 45 years. Yeah. And I tell clients, for the amount of equipment and liability and overhead that I have coming to your door, you're not coming to my office. I am mobilizing my entire company to your home. And there's millions of dollars of equipment out there, millions just in equipment. If I can't make 12, 15% for the level of liability and effort and time and thought and sweat, it's not worth it. And if you can't understand that, and I've had clients, because a lot of my clients are big financial people, and I'd never forget it. Some financial guy in Princeton was like, I only make 3% margin. I'm like, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm an attorney. What kind of attorney? I'm a patent attorney. What kind of patents? Pharmaceutical. I said, so you're talking just to get FDA approval on a drug, $1 billion venture, $1 billion. What are we talking about here? And it was almost an insulting conversation, but we kept it professional, and I educated him as much as I could. But I said to him, go down the street and ask the gentleman who's making a $12 pizza for you. His margin is probably 100%, 500%, but it's a $12 item. It's not relative. And it's right back to educating. Because this industry doesn't get the respect it deserves. So what we do is really hard. But the more the industry can get educated and informed, the more we can be more unified and stop shooting ourselves in the foot. Because we had this conversation last week where I'm billing out my design time for $200 an hour, and everybody's doing it for free. Why? But you have to provide $200 an hour of value. Yeah. That's a profit center you're dismissing, but all you're doing is undermining the value of the industry. You're saying design has no value. So you're conditioning your clients and your industry in a negative way. But look at the lawyers. They've all pulled together. Look at the doctors. They've unified. Our industry shoots itself in the foot every day.
I love that. Another question. This is mostly about training. How do you provide training to your employees? I'm sure they're going through some certifications, improving their skill set. Do you have a coaching program? How do you mentor them, make sure they're up to date with the latest industry trends? What does that process look like?
You're making it probably more sophisticated than my answer.
Okay.
The first thing I always do is, when I'm interviewing anybody, are you looking for a job or a career? And they all look at me like, I don't even know what that means. And nobody's ever asked me that. So what's the difference? I said, well, if you're looking for a job, I'm not going to invest in it as much in you as I'd like. Because if it's not something you love, it's not something you want to learn, it's something that you're not passionate about, and if you find something else you like better, or somebody offers you an extra $1 an hour, I don't want to waste your time or my time. But if you're coming to me because you love this industry and you want to learn this industry and you want to grow in this industry and support your family in this industry and truly want a career, then let's talk about how I would invest in you. Okay. And you have to tell me what aspect of the business you want to be in. Number one, is that out in the field? Is that sales? Is it design? What is it? And so typically it's, let's just say it's a guy in the field. Okay. Well, after the first 30 days, I'm going to ask you, do you still like the job? Because when I'm interviewing them, I'm telling them the best things about the job and the worst things. The worst things, it's December, it's cold, and it's wet, and you're out there. It's not fun. Not fun. Other days, it'll be 77 like today, with no humidity. You'll be on some of the most beautiful properties in the world. And you'll be loving it, right? So I always want to ask them, after 30 days, we do a review. What do you think? Give me some feedback. Is it what I said it was?
Yeah.
And I also talk to my guys. What do they think of that individual? He's green as they can come, but he never sits down. He's not on his phone. He asks questions. He never stops moving. He's got a great attitude. He's a team guy, blah, blah, blah. Awesome. I'll even ask my guys, am I underpaying him? Is he worth more?
Yeah.
So, and then obviously a 6-month review as well, and then a year review type of thing. And obviously there's dialogue along the way. Obviously you're talking on the job site. And I'll say, look, do you want to get a commercial driver's license? Get a Class A driver's license. I'll pay for it, but you're going to put skin in the game. You're going to pay for half, and then over a period of time, I'll pay for the other half, or I'll pay for all of it. But I've had guys that got a CDL that I paid for eventually and left. Well, now in New Jersey, that can cost me between $6,000 and $10,000. So it's really climbed. It used to be $3,000 or $1,800. Keeps going up. So I'll send you to classes in the winter. And the big part is, I'm going to ask my guys to slow down and explain things to you. But you're making their day longer and putting more pressure on them to still get the job done and be profitable. And I had one guy that was with me for a month, and he said, well, the guy's not really teaching me much. And I said, well, Carlos, here's the feedback. You don't seem interested in the guy's eyes. You don't ask questions. You don't communicate to them. He was a quiet guy. And I said, if you would just change that, you'll see a huge difference. But if they don't think you're into it, why are they going to slow down, make their day longer, invest in you? Because those are your best teachers in the field. Because if you eventually want to do design, you need to know how things work, how they're built. If you eventually want to do sales, you got to know how things work, how they're built. You got to start from the bottom up. You can't design and then be crippled and say, I have no idea how these things work. Or how are you going to sell anything if you don't know how it works? Right? And I tell the guys all the time, I said, look at me, I was pushing a lawnmower at 18. Now I have millionaires and billionaires asking me questions. So I always tell people, just because I'm handing you a shovel day one doesn't mean you're going to be holding that shovel the rest of your life. But that's up to you.
You got to
not
start
just me. You got my son. My biggest thing with my son, I said to him, I don't want you to get the label of, oh, the boss's kid, that tagline. And I said, you're going to have to learn it from the ground up, if you really are interested in this business. So he started me at 20. He's now 30 and has his Class A, certified Pentair tech, certified pool builder, very talented guy. And it was so funny. I said, Bud, you got to earn your own stripes, right? Not mine, yours. And it was so funny. At 25, he goes, Dad, I'm the youngest guy in the whole company. Why is everybody calling me? I don't get it. I'm working with guys twice my age who've been doing this longer than I've been alive. I said, you don't realize it. That is the hugest compliment you could ever get. I said, you know why? Because people value what you have to say because you know what the hell you're talking about. You did it. You did it. In 5 years, you did it. And it's not everybody, but he really applied himself, you know? So I always say to every employee, and I say this to every owner, shame on the employee who never takes full advantage of what's in front of them and leaves. Oh, I never got my shot. You never took it. Shame on you. And I say the same thing to every employer. Shame on you if you lost a great guy.
Yeah.
Because you didn't give him the chance to grow. You held him back. Shame on you. You lost a really talented guy.
I agree. It goes both ways.
Goes both
you're
ways.
losing a player and they're not taking the time to learn and train.
Right.
I know we're running out of time, but next week I really want to dig deeper into your hiring process. How do you onboard employees? What's your organization structure look like? Because I feel like that's another big problem in the industry. Like, can't find reliable workers. How do I hire people? I bring them on next week, they leave, or 2 weeks later. Right. So what's that look like for you and Liquid
Right.
Scope as well? So we're gonna
Okay.
talk about that next week.
Awesome.
Before we leave, any last minute questions, anything like that?
Nah, I mean, one of the biggest deals that just listening to his story and everything is, and then for especially a guy goes to you, having an advertising firm, is just how big difference the markets are.
Yeah.
This, sitting here talking 3 million, 4 million, 2 million. When you look over here and you go to the 4 counties, the tri-counties where we're at in Austin, Texas, and you look at your average pool price project, there's $110,000. So when you talk high end, where Matthew McConaughey and Sandra Bullock live, their house is a big house, but it's the cost of living's a little lower here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why she bought a $2 million house that's got 14,000 square feet. So, that's the biggest take that I see.
But it's all relative. Demographically, the cost is different. Yeah, I mean, our average pool before COVID was like $150, and then after COVID and everything quadrupled in cost, now the average pool is like 200,
and
even
ours
we
was
were
55 to 60
yeah
before COVID.
Kind of in the
Yeah.
area where he's at. He's getting a high end customer. The customer that picture that you have behind you, he does all that. He does the steps and he designs the trees and so he designs the entire backyard. So maybe he gets that $1 million, $2 million price.
What are you guys paying for in Austin for labor? Skilled labor, foreman, because that'll give me a good barometer as well. Like
You're
here
looking like whether you work with the major, what I call volume deal. Like, I've hired 2 project managers that work for me, and you can pick a good project manager running stuff with experience for around 65,000 a year.
Yeah, here 100,000 or more.
Yeah,
Yes,
see?
it's different.
Yeah, so it's all relative.
And that's why I was saying it's interesting. That's why I wanted to get on, because we're pretty in tune here in Central Texas with our third Thursdays and meeting with builders, and
Yeah,
we're all friends.
Yeah.
We all are trying to help each other. And one valid point you said, it's true. Our industry, no matter what state it is, whether you're building in Florida or whether you're building in California, New Jersey, or Texas, it has a bad rap.
yeah,
And what we noticed here in Texas is when the volume of the calls happened during COVID, the pool industry went through the roof nationwide.
right.
Well, you mentioned Pentair. Well, my Pentair reps here said, sorry, Chad, we don't know when we're going to get a pump.
Right.
We don't know when we're going to get heaters. We don't,
Yeah.
You're sitting here saying, well, I got customers that
Yeah.
I'm ready to put equipment set on the ground. And then everybody decided to be a pool builder.
Right.
Right. So now we're seeing a change where I'm going to a lot of remodels. where it's holes in the ground,
Yeah.
where the guys took their money and took off.
Right.
Yep.
And,
Well,
and
when we had Hurricane Sandy here, right? It was so laughable because the insurance companies were so overwhelmed that kids in their 20s were taking crash courses and then coming out and determining whether a home should be demolished or renovated, and basically authorized to cut the checks. And I tell clients all the time, it's unbelievable. I said, when we have these catastrophes like 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, and then COVID, when the market it's so funny. The market works against itself when there's this kind of emotional push. Oh my God, I've got to find a safe haven out of New York and go to either the Hamptons or New Jersey. When everything's emotionally driven, that's when you have the greatest amount of fuck ups to be.
Scumbags.
And I tell clients all the time, it's so ironic when the market is booming and there's more work to go around, and obviously COVID and created that as well for a different reason. That's when you get the worst product, because
Yep.
all people care about is how fast I can get it, not how well it's done. And I'll tell clients, I said, trying to get a square piece of bluestone when the market's booming, you'll never find it, because the quarries don't care. It's going to move anyway.
right.
And then you'll have to square it up. But when
Right.
the economy is slow and they got all the time in the world to square up that bluestone, you'll get a better product. So, even Pentair couldn't keep up, and the crap they were producing was crap
It was.
because they couldn't get the parts.
No.
So they
I mean,
were
how many light
manufacturing.
issues we have, right? Light issues
Right.
over here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
So even people of great wealth that rule the world, that mold our world, running billion-dollar conglomerates, I'm always amazed. Don't you see it? Don't you understand what's going on? And when COVID hit, everybody was making decisions here purely on emotion, not fact. And bid wars on properties that I would show up later and go, you bought the wrong property. You don't even know what you bought. And the
right.
guy I'm working for in Rumsden, New Jersey, who was told that the fencing in the backyard was his property line. I'm like, no, that's in the conservation area. Your property is 30 feet forward. He's like, are you shitting me? I'm like, no, we just had the property surveyed. He goes, oh, I was told that was my property line. It was crazy here because so many people were displacing out of Philly and New York that never owned a home in their life. Their parents never owned a home in their life. They lived in the city, and now they're buying acreage and think they can do anything they want. I'm like, no, you got an easement going through your property.
Yep.
So, for a guy that's got a high school diploma and nothing more, it amazes me the decisions people make without thinking it through.
Right.
It's all emotional. And that's why I try to get clients to slow down and think this stuff through.
Yeah.
When you make hasty decisions emotionally, you're only going to have a problem down the road. Slow down and let's think it through.
Right.
But that's
Guys,
the reality.
let's-
That's the reality of the world we live in.
Let's
is.
wrap it
You're right.
up. I'm gonna have a lot of questions for you, Howard, on our next call. We're gonna talk about hiring. We're gonna jam out, talk about org structure as well. But other than that, hope you guys have an awesome weekend, and I'll see you guys next week.
Adios, man.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks so much, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a great holiday.
You too.
Yeah, you
Bye.
too. Bye.
Bye.